Okay. The Historic Preservation Committee meeting is now called to order. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. To comment during the meeting, members of the public may call 702-589-9629 when the public comment period is opened. Okay, public comment is open. Yeah, I just did. I can say it again. Phone number is 702-589-9629.
Madam Chairman, while we're waiting to see if there's any calls, I will have 2 public comments to read into the record.
You have to use a microphone?
Will it work?
Well, try it.
Say, while we're waiting to see if there's any calls coming in, I do have 2 public comments that I'll be reading into the record. And then also you can see if anybody in the audience wishes to speak.
Okay. Maybe we'll start with your comments first, and then I'll open it up to the audience.
The first submitted comments are, my name is Charlie Hauntz, and I'd like to address agenda item number 3. It is difficult to know how to respond to this proposed addition to the house at 418 Ash Street, a house that once contributed to the historic character of the Ash Street neighborhood. The proposed addition is so obnoxious and so contrary to any concept of historic preservation that it is difficult to respond without being vulgar. The owners of this property obviously have no regard for the beautiful historic neighborhood in which they reside, nor do they have any concept of the value attached to maintaining the character of buildings within a historic district. There is no point in talking to the owners of this house about voluntarily complying to historic guidelines, because this current proposal and their past actions, a vinyl fence that destroyed the ambience and character of the street, made quite clear that they have no intention of abiding by any voluntary historic preservation guidelines. However, some good may come of this travesty if it can act as a clarion call to action to get on with the adoption of a new Boulder City Historic Preservation Ordinance. The rewriting of City Ordinance 11-27, Historic Preservation, has been listed as goal number 4 in the current Historic Preservation Committee goals. Quote, amend existing codes and programs to achieve historic preservation goals and to comply with CLG and SOI standards, unquote. The mechanism for accomplishing this goal has begun with the formation of an ad hoc committee to pursue this task. The failure of preserving the historic character of Boulder City neighborhoods by adopting voluntary historic preservation guidelines has been made abundantly clear with the preliminary completion of the Northwind Report, which documents that Boulder City no longer has enough buildings that contribute to the historic character of the district to maintain its status as being listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It is time to complete the process of writing a new Boulder City Historic Preservation Ordinance that contains mandatory guidelines that comply with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. Perhaps it is not too late to stop the destruction of historic features of Boulder City. I trust that this committee will send a loud and clear message to the Planning Commission and the City Council that this type of blatant destruction of a once historic home is no longer acceptable in Boulder City. Thank you. The second comments are from Britt K. West, and everything in this references the Planning Commission. Boulder City Planning Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, it has come to our attention that the property at 418 Ash Street wishes to greatly increase the GLA of the property by adding a second story. I and my entire family are firmly opposed to this. We collectively own 4 properties, all family occupied, in the Boulder City Historic District within 1,000 feet of 418 Ash Street. For the record, I am a certified residential appraiser with 28 years' experience in all areas of Nevada. I am the past president of the Appraisal Institute for the entire state of Nevada. Other Nevada towns have historic districts, and I am very familiar with those as well. Our problems are all similar. Although the Boulder City Historic District rules are not yet firmly in place, it is my firm belief that this application is an attempt to beat the buzzer when development restrictions for the historic district become effectual. I understand that this is a second attempt at this application. At 2,006 square feet, the home is already one of the largest in the historic district. To add a second story would likely entail a 90% tear down of the current property, as the exterior walls cannot support the load of a second story. Is that what we want in our neighborhood? No. 2 of the main concepts in the professional valuation of real estate are conformity and homogeneity. The applicant's proposed improvement does not conform to properties in the neighborhood and is not homogeneous with the neighborhood. The long-term effect would likely be a diminution of value for the adjacent neighbors due to the lack of privacy and an impacted view corridor. In my professional opinion, it is grossly unfair to both the immediate neighbors as well as the surrounding neighborhood to allow a non-conforming property to be constructed. We strongly request that the Planning Commission deny this application. It is not in the best interest of the Boulder City, the historic neighborhood, or adjacent homes. Additionally, it has come to my attention that the recently installed vinyl fence at this property with masonry pillars does not have a permit. I am concerned that those pillars may very well be located on city land. Generally, in the historic district, the property line does not go all the way to the sidewalk. Please consider this formal complaint against the applicant for the installation of a non-permitted fence. In closing, I would like to remind the Planning Commission and others that the historic district is a unique area that has a quantifiable benefit for those that live here. If we wanted a larger home, we would have chosen a different location. Our family is here primarily due to the style of housing and the history of the neighborhood. To change the style of housing would be a disservice to us all. Thank you. Britt K. West.
Okay, thank you for the public comment. Now, is there anyone out in the audience that would like to make a public comment? You can't hear us here?
I can't hear anyone.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear here. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Are you folks hearing us?
I'd like to make a comment. I don't know if I can sit.
No, I'm sorry, no, you as a sitting committee member can't make public comment.
Okay. Sir, did you want to make a public comment? Could you please go to the...
Sir, this is the applicant who's going to speak for item 3.
Oh.
So it's not the time for this item.
I'm sorry. I didn't know that you were here for that. Okay.
Hold on. I think Ray was trying to make a comment about this setup.
Oh, I apologize.
No, that's okay. I understand, but no, I think this meeting, I can't see how this meeting can go on. I mean, this is really not having a good, this is making me feel very aggressive. I'm not feeling comfortable with this. It's affecting me. It's affecting me. So enough to want to, I don't want to.
I'm sorry. You're able to hear the other members. Oh, the echo? Is that what you're referring to?
It's like a football stadium in here. I just can't, it's affecting me.
Right. No, what I was told is that the overhead speaker, which is what broadcasts to the rest of the room, is not working. It'll be repaired by next week. We only just found out about this. I only found out about this 5 minutes before the meeting. Um,
And I don't know if it's safe for you all, but
If, if, if,
intolerable.
okay, if you'll, let me call a recess for a few minutes so I can go consult with the city clerk, okay? No, please, yeah, no, just general, yeah, just general, just a moment.
But they can't hear anything in the audience.
I'm sitting right here, so.
Okay,
Here's Susan.
I have a copy of that paper you just wrote, because I had a hard time hearing what you said about the whole.
I can,
I couldn't hear what you said, plus or minus about what you're reading before.
I was reading statements from, public statements that citizens submitted before the meeting.
Okay. I'm just trying to find out basically the issues concerning this project, plus.
Well, actually, I'll be able to explain that when we get to the agenda item. If you want to bear with us till we get to item 3, I'll be doing a summary of the project.
Okay, because I had a
And-
hard time hearing you before. I'm just trying to find out. I live in the historical section, and I'm just trying to find both sides of the issue before I make my decision, basically. That's all. So as I said, pardon me, I had a hard time hearing you or you reading before.
Right, it was very loud to us, so we weren't yelling because we were already hearing very loud echoes. So,
Okay.
but now that the echo problem is solved, we will all speak very loudly.
All right, thank you for your time.
thank
Susan,
you.
can you just say that those were 2 letters in opposition to agenda number 3? Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right, we're going to close off public comment now, and we're going to start our agenda. For possible action, approval of the minutes of the September 23rd, 2020 regular meeting. I need a motion for approval.
I move to approve minutes.
I'll second.
The minutes then will go on file.
You need to have a vote.
Sorry, I'm used to running a club meeting, which we don't do a vote, so I'm sorry, it's my fault. We will now have a vote on the minutes.
You say, all those in favor say aye.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, hearing none, then we will now place the minutes on file. For possible action, review and recommendation on an RDA Historic Preservation Grant application for 812 Arizona Street.
Okay, I'm going to speak very loudly for the benefit of the audience. This is agenda item 2, which is a request for an RDA Historic Preservation Grant application for 812 Arizona Street, which is St. Christopher's Episcopal Church. And essentially, they've applied for the specific RDA grant that is available in the historic district. Essentially, they want the money to do exterior painting and carpet replacement. And the information from our economic development coordinator is in the packet. As part of the process for these type of grants, it goes to the Historic Preservation Committee first for you to make a recommendation to the City Council. And just as a point of order, staff is looking into the legal aspects of whether or not the RDA funds can be used for a religious organization. It was our understanding initially that wasn't an issue, but we are looking into it. So at this moment, we just request that you make your recommendation, assuming it's okay. We'll get that question answered later.
Okay, are there any comments on that?
Linda, you're going to have to speak very loudly.
Okay, are there any comments on that?
I was looking through the packet here for this church. I think giving the RDA money for the exterior maintenance of the building, of painting it basically, is a good thing, helps. It is a nice old building, it needs that kind of help. And I think that's what the RDA money is for, is to help people preserve their buildings. My only issue is the carpet. I don't see where the RDA should be buying new carpet. I mean, the building originally had wooden floors. They put some carpet in the 50s and they replaced it again in the 80s. Now, if they're asking for money to restore the floor back to the original condition, as it was, you know, the wooden floors and restain, refinish, whatever, fill nail holes, whatever, I'd be all over that. That'd be a good thing. But I'm just not seeing where the RDA is replacing somebody's carpet. You know, it's not historical to the building. It wasn't put in until the 50s. I just don't see, you know, where RDA should be buying somebody some new carpet. Again, I'm 100% for preserving the exterior, 100% for preserving the interior if it was to be what it was. Carpet, I have some questions on. I don't see how it fits into it. But that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Any other comments at this time?
Hi, I agree for the most part with you, Glenn, as far as it should be, the project should get funded for the painting, but I do wonder if the carpeting, granted it's not historic, however, is the carpeting going to be protecting the historic floor? And I don't, you know, I could see maybe funding part of the carpet in order to preserve the historic floor, but that's not really described or mentioned in the proposal. So I'm kind of up in the air too about the carpeting. But yeah, I would love to see the outside painted.
Can I speak or do I have to wait till you're done?
Um,
I'm with the church.
Oh, okay.
Then,
Is she allowed to
I have
speak?
a comment.
Oh, yes, please, Mary.
I was reading through the materials, and it seems that the carpet was installed for safety reasons to prevent slipping and falling. And then I looked at the pictures that were included, and the state of the carpet that it's in right now would contribute to tripping and falling. It's in really bad condition, and my understanding is it's only going to be in the walkways, not the entire floor. I don't think the carpet is there to preserve the wooden floor as the primary concern, but it's there more for safety. But I also agree with Glenn and Blair that I'm not sure that's something we should be paying for.
Okay, very good. Am I allowed to
yes, you
have
can
her
ask
speak?
for the
Okay.
applicant.
Please come to the podium and then also speak your name. And
Okay, I'm Darlene Dufault. I'm the senior warden of St. Christopher's Episcopal Church at 812 Arizona Street. And I understand your thoughts about the carpet because we were thinking the same thing. Basically, the carpet was when the carpet was installed, it was a requirement at that time for safety reasons. And so the fact that the carpet is in disrepair is a safety reason only. The carpet is only in the center aisle and at the altar area where people come in and walk. The rest of the wood floor is preserved and the rest of the building is preserved. So it is for safety reasons. And when I read the grant, it talked about safety reasons for visitors if they were coming to a museum or something. So I thought it might apply in this situation. We have a lot of visitors, especially from out of state and the rest of the state who come to our church as visitors. And so safety is a very big concern for us. So that's the reason we included that piece.
okay. Thank you. Any other comments at this time?
I was, my feeling was if it was legally okay, was all for the painting of the building, and of course I have the same questions about the carpeting, but I would have liked to encourage the restoration of the floor if indeed that was an option. You know, and just take care of it. Maybe now's the time. You know, money's being spent and funds are available to you.
I don't know that's an option. You have to go to the podium, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if that's an option because of safety reasons and regulations in that respect, because we have so many people coming through and the slip and fall hazards of a slick, polished floor like that's in the rest of the building. So I don't know if that's an option for us with the amount of traffic that we get through there. I think it was for safety reasons.
It's very slick then.
It was
Okay.
basically put in
Highly
for
polished.
safety reasons in the 50s.
Sure.
Originally. So we had no choice. I don't think we wanted to get rid of those beautiful
Yeah.
floors. We loved
Well-
them, but I don't think we had a choice.
I see the carpet as being protective too of the floor that's underneath it, you know, whether it's for safety or not, it's still providing that
Yes.
protection, so, and we're not talking about a lot of money here, so
No,
I'd
it's
be
not.
inclined to support it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, since there aren't any other comments, then we will move on.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I suspect that the city council is going to want a formal recommendation
Oh, okay.
from the committee.
All right. Do we have to vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're going to vote on a formal recommendation for this amount of money. So I need a motion put in place in order to make a vote.
I'd be happy to move to approve the funding of the project.
Okay. And,
Second.
okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none,
Aye.
then the motion is carried. Okay, I think we can move on now to agenda item. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, the masks don't help with that. Okay, we're going to move on now to agenda item, let's see, 3. Okay, for possible action, review and recommendation on proposed fence pilasters in a front yard at 418 Ash Street, and courtesy review of revised elevations for a proposed addition relative to the adopted exterior design guidelines for that area.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As noted, there are 2 parts to what is coming before the committee. The main item, because it has not come formally before the committee before, is the fence pilasters in the front yard. As reported to the committee previously, vinyl fences that are under 4 feet in height do not require a building permit. Therefore, since no building permit is required, there's nothing the city can approve or deny, which is why those type of items don't come before the committee. However, since the pilasters out in front of, connecting the fence, there's 4 of them at the front of the property. Since those are more permanent construction, they're of a block type of construction, they do require a building permit. And because the established guideline for this area is that the front yards are continuous lawns, even though the fence doesn't interrupt the continuous lawn for this individual lot, it does interrupt the continuous lawn in terms of the streetscape, which appears to be what the original guidelines were referring to. For the benefit, so the audience knows how these guidelines work, under the current Historic Preservation Code, the committee can propose guidelines which are then adopted by the city council, but it is voluntary for property owners to comply with the guidelines. The most that the code can do is delay a permit so that the committee can provide feedback and recommendations to the property owner regarding it, but the committee cannot stop a permit from being issued. The report also notes that there are revised elevations for a proposed addition that came before the committee 2 years ago. As noted 2 years ago, the owners are planning on putting a rather large 2-story addition at the rear of the home, which of course violates the adopted guideline that the homes in the historic district are 1 story. The committee already recommended against that addition being built, but again, under the current code, the committee nor the city can stop that from happening. Since the pilasters had to come before the committee, and since the permit for the addition has not been approved yet, we're just letting you know that the front elevation for the addition has changed from the version that was presented 2 years ago. Essentially, there are more windows than there were compared to the original submission 2 years ago, which the committee, may find and, may either consider a good thing or a bad thing. But one good aspect of the changes is that the original roof line of the one-story home now is not proposed to be changed, and before it was proposed to be changed. So with that, the owners are not present tonight. I believe they are traveling, and they've asked that their contractor be present to pass on your comments to them.
Okay, any comments right now about 418 Ash Street? Oh, Glenn, go ahead.
Are we gonna discuss this in two parts? I mean, we got, you got the fence issue, which would take one discussion, then you got the addition,
Second story?
which would take another complete discussion.
Okay, let's do it in two. That's a good
Can we just
recommendation.
talk about the fence first? That's a minor,
can do that.
relatively minor, but get that taken care of first.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, on that note, my opinion is that it needs to go back to, the planning commission, for their approval of it.
Point of order, nothing here goes to the planning commission. I realize that one of the audience, or rather, excuse me, a citizen who submitted written comments, which I read aloud, he referred to the planning commission, which is an error. Nothing about the fence or the pilasters requires a variance. The zoning code allows people to have 4-foot fences up to 4 feet in height in their front yards. And for pilasters, the code allows up to 1 foot additional in height for lights or finials. So based on the plans that were submitted after it was built, it would comply with that zoning aspect. Now, that person who submitted the letter also pointed out that it appeared that the fence and the pilasters were in the city right-of-way.
That's what I was gonna go to.
And that I presume to be correct. My understanding, unless I'm told otherwise by Public Works, is that in this area, the property line is 3 feet behind the sidewalk. And definitely, the pilasters and fence have been built within the public right-of-way. So the owners will need to ask for an encroachment license from Public Works. I do not know whether that would be approved or denied, but if it's denied, the owners would have to completely remove the fence and pilasters from the city right-of-way, but they could build it on their property, which would be 3 feet back of the sidewalk. But none of that involves a variance or the planning commission. As I said, the zoning code does allow 4-foot tall fences within front yards in any residential zone. And also, for reference, in all residential zones, a 2-story home is allowed. So none of this would have to go before the planning commission.
Okay, well, then whoever would pass our thoughts or recommendations to, I would address it to them then, that those pilasters need to be moved and brought back into, onto their own land and not on city property. That's all I was getting at, and, and they need to go through the proper permitting for those, because I also noticed it looks like, it appears that there's electric lights on them. So if it was done without a permit, there probably was needing inspection on electrical, underground electrical going up those things where kids walk by, who knows the potential safety hazard. So I would, whoever needs to address getting those moved back onto their property, proper permits applied for, and proper inspections, done, to ensure that they're installed properly, electrical is installed properly, by a licensed electrician or whatever, and all permitting is done and inspections are done.
we may not be able to stop permits, but I don't think there's any problem with us expressing our outrage or disappointment at what these people are doing in our historic district. I call it arrogant disregard for the guidelines. The guidelines are there. These people have lived in the historic district for a long time, and they're completely disregarding the guidelines and their neighbors, in my opinion. I think it's very arrogant, and they put up this fence without going through the proper permitting, which I see as another arrogant act. And I'm really displeased. I'm really disappointed, and I think it's appropriate to express that, and I think a lot of other people share my opinion. And there may not be anything we can do, Susan, but we can express our disappointment. And it's blatant disregard for the guidelines, and I might as well say it about the addition. You know, it all applies to the addition as well. It's a monstrosity. It's Newport Beach. You know, it's like an Airbnb Newport Beach rental, and it doesn't belong there. That's my opinion.
Okay, any other comments at this time? And remember, we're talking about the fencing.
I'd like to know if Susan has any clarification. Glenn pointed out that there are lights on the pilasters, and do they extend above the 1 foot additional allowance? And I would like to know if they're underground electrical or if they're solar, because I didn't find that information in the materials.
Basically, I'll have to go back and look at the plans were rather skimpy, so I know that for approval that it's noted that they cannot exceed 1 foot in height or above the 4 foot pilaster. So that will have to be measured in the field since they've already been done, and I don't know if that part has been done yet. I'm sure the contractor can answer regarding where the electrical is, but to answer Glenn's prior question, when it was brought to the city's attention by the committee that this fence had been put up, we did follow up with the owners, so they did file for their permits after the fact, which is why you now have something coming before you. But again, Neil Parks, the contractor, is here who could answer the question about the electrical, I presume.
Okay, before we ask Mr. Parks to come forward, I'd like the committee to finish commenting.
That's what I was doing.
Okay.
So I completely agree with what's been said previously, but I would also add that, you know, one of our jobs is to look at the Secretary of Interior standards now that we are a certified local government. And the fence does not adhere to the guidance, or to the standards, I should say, for number 9, which states that new additions and new construction will not destroy historic material features or spatial relationships that characterize the property. And the property is characterized by these long continuous green spaces, and it completely cuts up not only the green space for the property, but for the entire block or that side of the street on that block. So I do not approve of this fence, no matter if it's under 4 feet or 3 feet.
Okay, we're going to comment on the addition at this time. So let's wait and call Mr. Parks. Let's call Mr. Parks up after they comment. So you're listening to them, so then you can respond. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and comment now on the second-story addition. Any comments? I know some of you did already, Ray.
You want me to start here?
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn. Yeah, we'll start with you. That's a good idea.
Again, I don't see that fits in any way within the guidelines or within the neighborhood. My concerns is, why? I mean, if they want that big a house, sell that house, take the money that they're gonna put into the addition and buy a house. You know, you got the Storybrooke houses, you need five to seven bedrooms for a little over $500,000. I mean, that house, I mean, I did some looking up with just some rough ideas with some houses for sale in the area. The house right next door to them is for sale, and I don't blame them. Looking at the chance of having this McMansion right next door to them, got a little 1,300 square foot house, and you have this 5,000 foot monstrosity right next to you. That one's going for, you know, they're selling for $263 a square foot. I mean, if the house at, you know, 418 Ash, if they sold it, if they could sell it for that, you know, that'd be a $527,000 house. Other houses in the neighborhood are the listing price. I don't know if they'll sell them for that or not. There's one over on, I think it's over on Birch, and it's going for roughly $400 a square foot. There's another one up on Denver that's going for $482 a square foot. I take that, you know, if they want a big house, fine. Sell their house, buy a big house someplace else, and use the money that they're going to spend on a renovation. And I'm sure that renovation is 3,000 square foot. You know, I think, you know, cheap side of building a new house is, you know, probably $100 a square foot. So that's a $300,000, you know, outlay there, I'm guessing. I'm not a contractor or anything like that. I'm just, you know, just people I know and talk to, you know, that's what the estimate is new house building. Now, if you, now they've got to modify the other house to attach this thing to, so maybe it's $150,000 or $150 a square foot to build it. I don't know. But that'd be $450,000 for a 3,000 square foot thing. I just, you know, I don't understand it. Why would somebody want to do that? They've lived in the historic district a long time. They must have moved there because they like the historic district, and then now they just single-handedly wanted to, you know, destroy the whole block, in my opinion. I mean, when I have family or friends come to visit, I like to drive them all over Boulder City and show them our historic homes and stuff. Now when if I'm going down, you know, going up Ash Street and stuff like that, I'm saying, look at our beautiful neighborhoods and stuff like that, and then look what we got here. You know, I don't see it. I don't see where it's even a wise investment on their part. I don't know if they'd ever get their money back. Because they're going at the kind of money that other houses go for. They get done with this addition, you know, you run to $400 a square foot, it's a $2 million house.
Okay.
I mean, it just does not fit in the neighborhood. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't fit in the historic district. I mean, there's plenty of places to build something of your dreams, but I don't think that's the right place. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Mary, do you have one?
Yes, I'd just like to note that the fence, to me, is disruptive to the streetscape of the continuous lawns, as Susan mentioned before. And the elevation of the house, I think the whole aesthetics of it and the size in this particular historic area is just not conducive to the neighborhood.
Okay. Blair?
Just looking for my notes. The addition is an abomination to the historic district and especially to that neighborhood in so many ways. And I think there are a number of opportunities that Glenn mentioned that if the family really needs more space, there are options for moving. The other thing I'm thinking of, it'd be really nice perhaps to talk to the owners and find out really what are their needs. Why do they need either that much space, or why does it have to be in that configuration? If they're looking for a certain square footage, you know, not knowing exactly what the need is, there are other ways of adding to a historic property, and that includes perhaps they could build a basement or finish out a basement. I don't know if there's a basement there. They could put a one-story to the back of the building. They could reconfigure the interior of the existing building. Again, we didn't get enough information really to make a lot of good quality suggestions. Another option is, and I've seen that in this community, especially on one of the streets, Birch maybe, where the homeowner, two homes were purchased side by side, and then they connected the homes towards the back. Not directly, but it's not a code problem. It's two families basically who own these two properties, and there's a fence between the two properties, and behind the fence is kind of like this one designed outdoor living space with a gazebo, with I don't know if it's a garage or casita or whatever, but it's a nice way of expanding the family or having an extended family living right next door to each other and very close to each other, but not necessarily attached to each other. But it also maintains the historic integrity of the property, of the properties, as well as the neighborhood. So those are some options that they could take, and I wonder if perhaps, I mean, I would love to talk to them about it. I'm not sure if they consulted with an architect or designer who has that kind of sensitivity. I know we all know one architect here in town, Alan Stromberg, who's excellent. I don't know if they consulted with him to get advice, but he's sensitive to how to modify and rehabilitate a home and expand it appropriately and sensitively. I don't think there's anything that can be done. Again, we only received the front elevation and a single side elevation. There is no floor plan. There's no site plan. I can't tell how this site or how this addition relates to the entire property and to the building as a whole. All I see is a facade. I don't know if they're chopping off the back of the home. I don't know what they're preserving in regards to the original home. I don't know if there are other buildings that could potentially be utilized for expansion. So there's so much, there's so little information that, I mean, I could offer any advice or if they asked to accommodate the need for space, for additional space. I guess my other question is, and maybe whoever the representative is on this, is I'm not sure what this thing is in the direct center of the building. Looks like a chimney. Anyway, confusing to me. And the windows don't at all align with the historic windows in the historic district. The roof line is screwy. The addition to the left over the small utility building, again, adds just more massiveness to this project. So I just do not at all support this. I would really hope the owners reconsider this project.
Okay, you've heard the comments of the committee, Mr. Parks. Could you come forward now? You're the contractor, right? And I think you can ask him questions at this time, maybe to clarify some of your concerns.
So this is my first, I'm Neil Parks, but I just want to set the record straight. I have not been hired as a contractor for Ms. LeBeau. I'm a spokesperson for her. She couldn't be here this evening, and she and I are friends, and she asked me if I could come. I looked at the agenda. The agenda was about a fence. And it looks like it's kind of taken a rabbit trail someplace else other than the fence. That's what was proposed right here is a fence. So what I did is I took it upon myself, and I'll just give this to you. You can pass it around. This is a beautiful fence. Went out and I measured the pilasters, and I will tell you that the fence was put in without a permit. I knew nothing about the project, nothing at all. And after talking to Destry, she's lived here, what I know, all her life. She's very acquainted with Boulder City. She loves the historic district. And the things that I've heard just kind of float through arrogance and abomination without talking to the lady, I think is inappropriate. That's my
Oh,
comment.
be careful.
That's my comment to what I just heard spoke about a very amenable lady. And to be quite honest with you, she was misled about her fence. She hired a fence contractor and he told her she didn't need a permit. Now, I'm not making excuses for her. I'm just here to tell you that basically, as I drove around the neighborhood, I could give you about 8 or 10 addresses that have fences in that neighborhood: Cherry, Birch, Ash, Avenue B. They're right up against the sidewalk. And they've been there a long time up against the sidewalk. And let me tell you what, compared to what you see in this picture, and you're talking about her place as an abomination, excuse me, I could have brought pictures of all the ones that I looked at. I've been here 25 years. And so what I'm saying is that I came here to listen to about a fence thing on the agenda, and all I've heard is my friend Destry get slammed. And you've admitted you haven't gone up to talk to her. And I think that's very inappropriate of what you stand for here. The critique and the language, I think, is very inappropriate. If you're going to complain, go knock on the door. Introduce yourself. So that's my comment to what I've heard. So this is the agenda, what I understand it to be, about the fence. And all I'm here to do to say to you is she wants to comply. She'll take the pilasters down. I feel she was misled. As she beckoned me to look at some of this stuff, the man's a licensed fence builder, and he's the one that told her she didn't need a permit. I don't think he's even got a city license. Number one, you have to have a city license before you get a permit. So I guess what I'm here to try to understand is, are we talking about the fence? Are we slamming the lady that owns the property right into the ground? It's an abomination. It's all these other things that I've been hearing. Disregard. I think it's very inappropriate not to follow the guidelines of the agenda. I came up here to listen about that. She is an owner-builder permit, but she asked me to come and talk to you, and I just learned that this has been going on for 2 years, and it's just got to this point. If you didn't have the proper plans and the elevations, I think I know in my business, it's my fault if I don't do a little bit more investigating. Before I start, excuse the expression, bad-mouthing. And that's what I've heard. Now, I esteem historic Boulder City. I could tell you stories. I could describe some of the work that I've been involved with here. I stay here. I try to do all my work here.
I'm sorry, but this man is not speaking for the applicant, he's speaking for himself. And I think that's inappropriate. I'd just like to cut you off there.
You asked me to speak.
I'm sorry. if you just represent the applicant.
Okay. What else can I tell you about the fence?
Any other questions about the fence?
Mary Ann asked a question about if it was solar or electric on the lights.
It is electric.
Okay.
So, I'll just reiterate that I'm sorry you didn't get the right information, I guess, or you didn't
No.
read the, agenda, because the agenda does in fact say, that it's talking about the addition.
It does say on number 3, if you'll read it.
But
It
nonetheless,
supplies elevations for a proposed addition relative to the adopted exterior design guidelines for that area. So it's on the agenda to talk about this proposed.
Okay, what this says is review the recommendation proposed on a fence pilasters in a front yard of 418 Ash Street, and courtesy review of revised elevations for a proposed addition relative to the adopted exterior design guidelines for that area.
that's what, so there are 2 items on the
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah.
But, nonetheless, I appreciate that you have, suggested that it's definitely within our purview to talk to homeowners and property owners about their plans. It's also, we, as a committee, cannot necessarily move forward in that regard unless we get accurate information or complete information from the city. The applicant applies to the city for their permits, and we only get whatever information that they deem that we should get. So we don't have any other information. And so based on what we see, this one elevation, just front elevation and a single side elevation, this is a horrible looking project. So based on that, that's why at least I have my opinion. And I, like I said, and like you suggest, I would be happy to talk to them about the project and maybe come up with some solutions. And
Sure,
that'd be great.
sure.
So please pass that on, and especially if this is a courtesy review, we're not, I don't think, Susan, we can't, we're not really addressing this project because as far as whether we approve it or not, we're just talking about it.
Well, as you know, whether it's a formal recommendation or a courtesy review, based on the code, all you can do is provide a recommendation anyway. And, as staff, we'll apologize for not giving you the rest of the home elevations. Being that 2 years have passed, we could have done that. I apologize for that. We brought everything before you 2 years ago. Your recommendation was just as strongly against it back then. The perspective staff took at this time was that you'll still be strongly opposed to the 2-story addition, but the only thing pertinent to the committee's review relative to the guidelines is the facade facing the street. So what we were bringing to you as a courtesy was showing the changes of the front facade from the version that was brought before you 2 years ago versus this version. But 2 years ago, yes, we provided you the floor plans and the site plan for context. The only thing that has changed about the plans since then is that front elevation. Not that you would recall that from 2 years ago, so, I apologize, but I mean, staff knew that your recommendation regarding the rest of the 2-story addition as a whole wasn't going to change. We could easily predict you were still going to be just as opposed to it now as you were 2 years ago.
Well, I appreciate you trying to read our mind and predict what we would say, but it would still be nice to get the full picture so that when folks come to us, we can talk to them. And then we'll get if we do talk to the owners, we'll get the whole package.
I think she'd appreciate that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parks. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you coming.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can move on now. And at this time, I wanted to welcome Mary Ann Wainwright. She is our new addition to the committee. And thank you, Mary Ann, for volunteering.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Now we're going to go on to number 4. For possible action, discussion regarding activities for the historic preservation event for 2020. Okay, let's see. Okay, at this time, I wanted to commend Ray Turner for his amazing video. I didn't know that you had so much talent. I was, I mean, I was just amazed when I saw it. That first picture that you had with the property and the way it was framed, you know, and the water fountain and the music, intros and everything. It was just really, really delightful to watch. And Blair, I thought we were watching CBS. No, you were a little nervous at first, but you kind of relaxed, and you got right in there with them. And I thought it was so interesting to see and to hear the real story of the property and see the owners. You know, normally we just come in here and give an award, and that's nice, you know, with the city council and everything. It makes it very formal. But I thought this particular video is something we might want to do in the future. I think it was just really great to hear the owners talk about their property, show us inside, and you know, I think it gave them an opportunity to shine. You know, so I want to thank both Ray and Blair for stepping up to the plate and taking this on, and they did a marvelous job. I can't wait to see the other videos, so thank you so much. Well, I think if you just do, you know, what you did, yeah, right, it was great. Okay, now, I've got to find my number 4 here. Okay, here we are. All right. Historic Preservation Event. The first video for Virtual Historic Preservation Month is now on the city website. The committee may continue discussion on the remaining videos for the event. So, Ray, would you like to talk to us about that?
Sure. Well, we did the first one with Hillary and Josh Brimhall, and the second installment is going to be on the Ash Street cottages, and they were also nominated for the Historic Preservation Award. And after the Ash Street cottages video, we've got one coming up on the company store with Tara Leon Bertoli. And then following that, we're going to be doing one on the Bureau of Reclamation as well. So it's 4 in total. And we should be putting out the Ash Street Cottages video next week.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see. And I did notice that the flyer did go out in the utility mail. And we did get some of those posters around town. So hopefully, you know, people are watching and waiting, and we'll see the future. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Susan, do you know how many people have watched the video, or can that information be gotten?
We'll find out. We can ask Lisa, our communications director, whatever she can find out about that.
I think it's close to 300.
Wow, already? Already now? 300? That's a lot, I think. You know? Yeah, I'm impressed. Okay. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see the videos as they come out. So thank you so much for all your participation, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future. It's going to be great. Okay, now we'll move on. Any other comments at this time with Historic Preservation Event? Okay, then we'll go to our next agenda item. Discussion on proposal for an ongoing series of articles in the local publications regarding Boulder City history. And as you know, former member Linda Schreck proposed working with the Boulder City Review and some local publications. And I did see a sample of what she wanted to do, and maybe she still will do that, you know. But she was telling me that part of the problem was that she couldn't get into the museum at this time to do research into the library, so it was kind of holding her back, you know. But I was thinking too, as Ray mentioned, maybe some of us want to write an article, you know, for the Boulder City Review. You know, we could take turns. Would anybody want to try that?
Not me.
Not you, okay.
If we take turns, I'll do it.
You will? Would you start, Ray? Would you start? Okay, you've got too much on your plate. How about you, Glenn? Oh, okay. All right, then I'll start. I'll write an article.
Great.
Okay. Does anybody have some suggestions about what I should write about? Or should I just take a freelance try?
Just as a reminder,
Yeah.
as I mentioned in the report, you know, if you're going to be doing something using the byline of the Historic Preservation Committee, then it should relate to, you know, your purview per the code, which is structures.
Structures.
If you want to do general history, you know, like what happened 50 years ago or something, then maybe it's best if you do that just as, you know, individually, rather than representing yourself as part of the committee, or leave that to, you know, another citizen like Linda Schreck or somebody to do that.
Okay.
How about
So-
the old hospital?
Old hospital?
Does it still have to be standing?
Well,
Not at all.
okay. Let me give that an attempt. I'd have to do some research. I don't know where I would start on that. You know, I guess I could Google it and see what happens, you know. I'll attempt something on that and we'll see what happens, but don't expect anything, you know, right away. But go ahead, Mary. Did you have something?
Yes, I had a question. Is there a section in the Boulder City Library that contains materials?
There is, I believe, on Nevada, but I'm not sure if it's just Nevada or Boulder, if it's,
In the
Well, the
Nevada
Boulder
room.
City and the historic aspects of Boulder City. Is there a section in there?
There is. I don't know what all they have, but they do have some really cool stuff. Some of the things that I've seen there are DVDs of interviews with the dam workers in later life, talking about their experiences, and it's incredible. And there's a whole bunch of those.
Related to the historic district and the committees that were formed way back, like in the 50s and 60s?
I don't know about
I
committees.
don't think they even had a committee till, when was the committee started?
For
1980s?
preservation?
I'm sorry, this
Oh,
committee?
Yeah, the preservation.
2006.
So that hasn't been that long.
But the Cultural Resources Committee was suggested in the 1993 report, right?
The Janus report?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
You mean that type of information? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But
You know, you could call the librarian at the Boulder City Library and see if she could help you.
Well, I think I'll just go over there.
Well,
And
They open?
the library, the only thing you can do is use the computer. You can't get in there yet. It's closed. But I think they could be able to help you over the phone.
Oh, I'll bet.
And I think you could probably check something out if they'll recommend something.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. I think I noticed in the Boulder City magazine, there you are. Hey, Michael. That you're writing stuff about historic preservation in there because now you're a board member for the chamber. And I was just wondering if that same information, are we duplicating what you're writing about? So.
Good evening, Historic Preservation Committee. I apologize for running around. I've trying to balance a couple of different things. But to answer your question, the Boulder City Magazine had asked the city to provide a monthly article on topics regarding what's going on in the community. And so certainly we wanted to reinforce promotion of Historic Preservation Month as well as Historic Preservation Survey. And so it was timely to be able to put that article in there. If you have the shopper, you'll see similar promotion that was put together by our communications manager, Lisa LaPlante, to promote historic preservation efforts. So we're trying to get the information out there in many different ways, including, as was mentioned previously, the utility mailers.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be looking for that. I haven't read anything in the Boulder City magazine lately, so I'll look into that. Okay, any other comments?
I hadn't seen that either, Michael, so I'll be going out of my way to check it out.
Yeah. Any other comments about writing? So keep it in the back of your mind, and maybe you'll get an inspiration. I'll work on this. But let's keep this on the agenda and keep talking about it. Okay. Next item of business. Update on implementation of the committee's goals and priorities.
Madam Chair, that will be mine.
Okay.
And so I wanted to give you an update on those activities. And as usual, this is part of the monthly discussion by the committee. Again, looking at the goals that the committee had identified and which was presented to the City Council and which they support. And so this is a good roadmap for the committee, for staff, and the community to see progress on historic preservation efforts. So you'll see within the goals, the action items, and then the updates. The updates are highlighted in bold. This would be on page 59 of your packet. Under Develop Historic Preservation Plan for Boulder City, the Nevada Preservation Foundation has extended outreach efforts to the community for folks to view the video that is on YouTube and the City of BC TV, and to have residents respond to the survey. So that is extended to November 30th. And we've included the questions that they're asking as attached to the packet. With explore creating new historic preservation districts within the Boulder City, with the North Wind's update to the Janus report. I know there were some questions by the committee. North Wind has responded to those questions, and that is also attached to this agenda item. We're still waiting on SHPO's initial review of North Wind's survey of the properties within the city's historic district. It's my understanding that it could be a couple of months before we hear back from SHPO, but certainly once we get those responses, we will share those with the committee. Under item 4, last night, the City Council selected the 4 members of the ad hoc committee, which will review the city's existing historic preservation ordinance. It includes Member Turner and Member Davenport. Staff will be working to coordinate with the 4 members of the ad hoc committee, identifying a time and place to hold the initial meeting. Just like every other committee that's appointed by the City Council, obviously that will follow open meeting laws and scheduling and posting of agendas and the material. So we'll be working to set up that initial meeting.
Ask a question?
Yes.
How will you set those up? Is that something you'll query all of us and we vote on a date and time, that kind of thing? Okay.
Correct, and then we would properly notice it and schedule for that meeting.
And has anyone suggested as soon as when can we meet, or What are we shooting for? This year, next year, this month, next month?
My goal, since I will be the staff person staffing that ad hoc committee, is to try to set up a meeting before the end of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Michael.
Sure. Under number 8, we just wanted to reinforce the council's support of the consideration for the water filtration plant, and so that will be incorporated in the CIP budget for this year. And once I get more information, both on the CIP budget as well as the grant opportunity, which we don't anticipate will be announced until the middle of next year, I'll share that with the committee as well.
Okay, very good.
I have a question. Do you need an estimate for what you're going to put a grant in for, or do you, I mean, what's your thought process as far as when that opportunity arises, what are you going to put in and what is it going to state? And did you want the Preservation Committee to help with that?
Well, we have as a basis for the improvements that were laid out in the Stantec study. And so what we would be doing for the CIP is budgeting monies toward those improvements, factoring in additional overage costs to follow that. If there is thoughts as to what the committee would be interested in beyond that, certainly you could share that information with me and I can convey that to our Public Works Department, which coordinates the CIP projects and presents them to the City Council.
Michael, would the ad hoc committee be reporting to the Historic Preservation Committee so that we can see updates on that? Or I noticed it was going to be like once every 3 months, the meeting. Or it's not?
I hope it's more than that.
I don't know. That's what I read.
The way that it was set up by the City Council is at least once every 3 months, but committee members could ask for additional meetings. Okay. It will be subject to the committee regarding that schedule. And to answer your question,
yeah.
Certainly what we can do with future agendas is add that as an update and have the 2 representatives on that ad hoc committee report out to the rest of the committee.
Okay, that'd be great. That'll be fun. All right, very good.
I've got a question. On this, this ad hoc committee and stuff, for doing these code amendments. Oh, I talked to Mark, sorry. Just out of curiosity, I'm just a ballpark, how long would a process like this take? I'm just, to have the committee people get together, and discuss these items and formulate changes and, and then get them before council to approve and stuff like that. I mean, how long of a process is it? I mean, is it like take a year, or is it a 2-year process, or? I mean, just, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I mean, just kind of a ballpark. I mean, you might have seen something like this in your career, and based loosely on that, what are we looking at? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I guess first and foremost, it'll be up to what the committee is interested in reviewing, the research that is necessary to respond to their inquiries, pulling the information together. The committee time frame, I don't have a good sense as to what that might be. It could be several months, it could be longer, depending on the discussions the committee has and the information they're seeking to be able to prepare a recommendation. Thereafter, the process for any text amendment to Title 11 of the City Code, which is the zoning ordinance where this is contained, that requires a public hearing before the Planning Commission, where they review and make recommendations, and then subsequent consideration by the City Council. And with the City Council, whenever you're amending the code by state statute, it requires a bill introduction at a meeting, and then within 30 days, action taken by the city council on that bill. So if that gives you a,
Yes, no, that's perfect, thank you. I mean, I know it's one of those things you can't just say, well, it's gonna take this long, I mean, so, but realistically, this whole process is probably minimum a year with, you know, with the ad hoc committee putting together stuff, doing their research, putting it all together, presenting it to the planning commission, then on to city council. I mean, it'd just be a minimum probably a year or something like that. I mean,
I think since we're ballparking 6 months to a year.
yeah, okay, but that's fine. I was just kind of curious. I didn't know if this would be something that could drag out for 2, 3, 4, 5 years or something like that. So if everybody works hard at it, it could all be done in 6 months to a year. That's a fair statement?
It's my best guesstimate at this point. It will be up to the committee and the planning commission and the city council.
Right, okay. Thank you, Michael.
As a member of that committee, though, I'm gonna shoot for totally less than a year. So it would be great if it was 6 months.
No, I was just curious, because, you know, kind of new to this, and just, you know, how long does a process like this take? I mean, you know, it's just more for my own curiosity, and maybe anybody that's watching, you know, how long is it gonna take for us to get to the point we want to get to? So, I mean, a year's time, that, you know, the way government moves, I think that's a pretty reasonable length of time. But just my opinion.
So, and I wonder, this is a question for you, Michael, if any of these meetings, I guess they are public meetings, so people could show up, but I think it's important to have public input on these proposed changes. So, I'm just wondering if perhaps there may be some workshops, let's call them, where we want to solicit public input in addition to the ad hoc committees. I don't know. We haven't met, but that's one way I've seen it where municipalities have changed or upgraded their codes, their historic preservation codes, and they, you know, solicit for public advice and information, which is sort of what the Nevada Preservation Foundation is kind of sort of doing, but it's kind of big picture. It's not like specific, though. They're not providing specific information on the actual code, which is what the ad hoc committee is going to do. So anyway, that might play into adding more time, I'm guessing, if that is something that we as a committee agree on. So.
Yes.
Just for what it's worth, I think workshops that include the general public is a good idea. I mean, over the years, I've gone to a few different workshops. You know, you get information, and at least the people have, you know, they feel when they get to talk to the people that are involved, they feel that they have some input. You know, and I think that's important because you want the input from the people, whether you accept their thoughts or not. But at least it gives them a good forum to express their thoughts and ideas about something. You know, it gives them a voice. I mean, they really can't do it at city council meetings. They really can't do it at planning committees. You know, but at a workshop, they can go up and like have a one-on-one conversation with Michael, you know, or something, or who's ever involved with Blair. You know, how does this proposed change? How does it affect me? How does it affect my neighbor? How does it affect the town? I think workshops are a great thing for community involvement. Now, if people don't choose to to participate in them, well, that's on them. But at least it gives the public a chance to have the conversation that that they never got to have after the fact. Well, nobody ever asked me. Nobody ever, I was never given an opportunity to give input. So I think workshops, if the ad hoc can work a couple of those in, I think that'd be a great thing for openness with the community.
And I would also add, though, I think it's important that as a committee, the Historic Preservation Committee, it's up to us to also talk to the community and bring, talk about these changes or potential changes, and then bring them to the ad hoc committee or the preservation committee meeting incorporate those comments. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to reach out and represent the community. So if you can, get some ideas, about XYZ home on, Elephant Street, if they're concerned about code changes, whether they're for or against, then, we need to hear that information.
I agree. I mean, and like I say, I think the workshops is a good way of doing that. You can have a conversation, I mean, somebody can walk up to Blair, they've seen you on TV, and they know that you know a lot of stuff, that here they've got a chance to one-on-one ask a question, get an answer. Same way with other people within the community, like, Michael, he's a wealth of information. They can have a one-on-one conversation with them, or anybody on the committee. I mean, so I think it's a good thing for the community, I think.
It's amazing too. I think with public comment, you can get a lot of good ideas that the community has. I mean, you think in a certain direction, but boy, one idea pops up and it can be amazing.
Sometimes you can find out, somebody on the committee might have an idea or a thought that they want to implement into the code, but then they're talking to somebody and that person says, well, did you think about this? And then all of a sudden, well, no, we didn't think about that. That could have a big impact. So, it's a good way of getting information back and forth, for both sides, for the community and for any committee. I don't care what committee it is. I think there's a good need for dialogue between the two, just to work with the community.
Well, we look forward to Blair and Ray bringing us some good feedback. Oh boy, that's going to be really a lot of work.
I think they're going to do a good job.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we'll move on to number 7. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Discussion and update on the status of properties in the historic district. Any comments? Okay, moving on to number 8. Committee discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming Historic Preservation Committee meetings. I think we've got our plates full right now with this ad hoc committee, which I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what you all come up with.
I'll just make a reminder comment that the 4th Wednesday next month is the night before Thanksgiving, so no, you won't be meeting then, per the decision you made last year. The alternate meeting date for November is actually on the first Tuesday in December, which is December 1st. Previously, the committee would meet on the first Wednesday, but now we've got a utility committee that meets that date. So I'll send out reminders, and you'll just be getting your packet basically the following week. So you'll be meeting Tuesday the 1st at 5 p.m. And Glenn has already mentioned he has another commitment, so he'll be here at 5, and then we'll have to leave at some point later on.
Yeah, I'll probably have to leave about 6:30 or so.
Okay. Well, you'll be here for most of it. All right. Thank you very much, Susan.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
And happy Halloween, yeah.
Okay. Boy, I know this fall has just flown by. Okay, now we're open again for public comment, and you can call in at 702-589-9629. And we'll leave a few minutes there for public comment. Okay, hearing no public comment, then for all practical purposes, this meeting is adjourned.
6.